Hey everybody, this is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. So I'm going to give you a quick update on this UWEX 16. I call it Jade Helm 16 or Jade Helm number 2, but the official name is UWEX 16, Unconventional Warfare Exercise 16. Now it's scheduled in at least 3 Texas counties for March through June 2016. It's the same kind of operation as Jade Helm 15 with a couple of notable differences. The first notable difference is that it doesn't seem to be a multi-state operation. So it seems to be confined to Texas and in just a few Texas counties at that. The other notable difference is that they're going to be using actors to help simulate scenarios for the Special Operations Command. One of those role-playing jobs that they've got posted, and they're seeking 30 altogether, one of those jobs is Guerrilla Chief. The Guerrilla Chief would be responsible for portraying the leader or assistant of a guerrilla faction. The person must be in shape. They have to be able to travel 10 kilometers carrying a 45-pound pack. They also must sign a non-disclosure agreement. Now, you're not hearing a lot about this because they are keeping very tight-lipped about it. Mark Lastoria is the U.S. Army Special Ops Command spokesman, and he's never available for comment. They've been putting out Freedom of Information Act requests. They've been trying to get a hold of anybody and everybody that will tell them what's going on with it, any kind of details that might have come up, a manual about it, kind of like the same thing they had with Jade Helm, but we're not hearing anything about it. And the only reason why we know about the role player jobs is because it's from the Oak Grove Industries website. They've got a little career section, and that's where they are recruiting for the military for this operation. Now, a lot of people kind of went off the deep end with Jade Helm 15. And initially, when I saw that map of, hostile state and friendly state, I was like, wow, what are they doing? And initially, you get a lot of things going on in your mind about what it might be for, what the reasons are, is this it? Is this martial law coming? And in the very beginning, those thoughts started bubbling up. But after more information came out, I started piecing the puzzle together and realized that there's basically 2 reasons for these types of operations. The first reason being probably the more obvious one in terms of, quote, conspiracy, is that they want to desensitize the public. It's a psychological operation to get people used to seeing the military, men and women, and vehicles and aircraft in the streets or in the air. That way they won't be like, what the hell's going on? I've got people in military fatigues, marching up and down the streets in this, 1,100 person town. People aren't going to care anymore because they see it all the time. And the reason that they have to do this in incremental steps is because of a thing called posse comitatus, which prevented the U.S. from using military to either police or even just do any kind of operations within the United States unless we were in war and had authority and authorization from Congress. But with the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, that all went away. So now the military can be used within the United States and, they don't care. But see, the reason the posse comitatus was there in the first place is basically a psychological one. The military should be separated from the police. And police used to be considered peace officers. And they weren't as violent-minded as they are today. Now, today you see police and they're wearing this tactical gear. They are running around with military assault rifles. They are, in every sense of the word, military. They have been militarized. The unfortunate side effect to putting this person inside of this military gear is that they believe they're G.I. Joe. These cops, with all the ego that comes with that job, they believe they are G.I. Joe. There's no there's no disagreement among the psychological community that when you place somebody in a certain role, they are going to become that role. Look at the Stanford experiment when they did the jail and the jailers started abusing the prisoners, even though they knew that it was it was all an experiment. But it became real to them because they became that role. It's the same thing with the military. If you have a military type person dressed in military fatigues, carrying around military weapons, and you put him out there to police people that are in the streets, they view the citizens of the United States not as citizens, not as fellow Americans. They see them as enemies. Everybody around them is a potential threat to that officer because of the mindset that has been placed upon the military role. That's why Posse Comitatus was there. They didn't want military policing the people because of that psychological phenomenon. If you want to feel good about yourself, dress nice. I can't emphasize that enough. If you want to feel good about yourself, dress nice. Because when you put yourself into that role, say a suit and a tie, you will take on that role. You will be that role. The same thing with the military police officers. So now the military can be used to police us if they want to. So that's why they have to desensitize the public to this, because they want to. They want the U.S. to become a military state, a military police state. Now, the second reason is that the government probably knows something we don't, and they're not going to tell us. They're not going to tell us why they need to train troops in southern border states. They're not going to tell us why. If they knew we were going to be invaded, do you really think they'd tell us? I don't think so. I don't think they would. They would simply send military units to the southern borders, keep their mouths shut about what's going on, even when people start questioning, why are all these people here? But see, that's the thing. Nobody's going to question that. If they see all that movement, they're just being, oh, that's another exercise. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're invaded. I believe the government knows that we will be invaded. I think that it's an eventuality, an inevitability that we will be invaded. And the government knows that. That's why they're training our troops to fight on U.S. soil, to do these operations on U.S. soil, because it's something that is going to eventually happen. You have to plan for those contingencies. So while this isn't probably a horrible thing that they train to fight, some guerrilla warfare in the southern border states, who's the enemy? That's the only question that bugs me. It's one thing if, say Mexico invades us, which, that's not going to happen. But let's just say hypothetically, Mexico decides to invade us. Okay, send the troops down there. Hell, I'll grab my gun or a gun, because I don't have a gun, but I'll grab a gun and I will go down there myself. In military or not, I will go and fight. If somebody invaded this country, it would be my duty to protect it. But what if that guerrilla warfare that they're training for is not Mexico, is not Russia or China? What if it's us? What if it's the revolutionary forces that are likely going to come at some point in time in the future? Because this U.S. government is horrendously killing, I call it religicide. They're committing religicide against Muslims is what they're doing. And you've got all these people on the right calling for religicide. So it's not unlikely that a revolution will start in this nation. And not because we want to protect, or somebody wants to protect the Muslims, because I don't care about a Muslim any more than I do about a Christian or any more than I do about an atheist. They're all the same to me. I don't prop one up over the other, and that's the way this country is supposed to run. That's what the First Amendment's all about. Freedom of religion. You don't get to say, oh, Christians are better than Muslims. You don't get to say that because they both had their extremes. So eventually, I think it's quite possible that another revolution will occur in this country. And that's what I'm afraid that they are training for. I believe that's why they're using guerrilla tactics. And they're getting these role players for guerrilla militia troops. Because they believe that that's exactly what they're going to be fighting. Because think about this. If Russia were to invade, or China, or any other large nation were to invade our southern states, do you really think they'd be fighting a guerrilla war? Hell no, they wouldn't be fighting a guerrilla war. No, they would not. They would have trained troops out there with leaders and generals and captains and colonels and all that other jazz. They'd have technological advanced planes, guns, tanks, all of that stuff. It would not be guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare is what you saw in Vietnam, where there wasn't like a real military per se. It was people that came together to fight against something. That's guerrilla warfare. When somebody doesn't have the same kind of weaponry and resources that the opposition forces have, they have to use different tactics. They have to use different tactics. And that's why we began to dominate in many places the British back in the Revolutionary War. Because the British wanted to come right out there and just stand in a line like they always did and just, fire volleys at each other. Just stand there and then wait for them to shoot you. And if you, by chance, don't die, then you get a chance to shoot back. Instead of doing that, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of, instead of doing that, they were the first guerrilla war fighters because they didn't have the same capabilities as the opposing force. The British forces had way more training, way more weaponry, way more ammunition. Everything else they had was top notch. So they had to employ guerrilla tactics. If Russia, China, or anybody else invaded us, or even Mexico invaded us, it wouldn't be guerrilla warfare because they would have the same level of units and items and weapons and stuff as we have. The only people that is likely to have to resort to guerrilla warfare are the American people. So they are training to fight against Americans in the southern border. That's why they're using guerrilla warfare tactics. That's the only thing that makes sense. And that's the second reason that I believe that they are putting out these exercises. So if you would agree or disagree with me, please let me know in the comment section. So yeah, spread the word because this isn't being talked about. It just isn't being talked about by many places. Mainstream media isn't covering it basically at all. It's just not there. It's a non-existent story. So get the word out by sharing this video and hit the subscribe button if you want to get updates to this, because as soon as I get more information, I'll put more information out there for you guys. But that's it for now. This is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. Peace out.